Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. I had a discussion on today, and that discussion on today more or less verifies my point of reference as it relates to modern women and their fickle nature concerning what they feel that they deserve in a man. You know, when men bring these topics to discussion, when we talk about the temerity of many modern women, oftentimes men are often chided, and many will say that, you know, your mama is black, who hurt you, or you hate black women. But in this ongoing theme of the modern woman and her unrealistic expectations, there's a woman by the name of April Mason that has more or less called herself to the clarion call to say that she herself is finished with modern women and their expectations for what they think they deserve and or want. I created a term called kosher hypergamy, and then also a term called carnal hypergamy. Most women of the past had a mindset that was similar to kosher hypergamy. Kosher in Hebrew was more or less tied to the Levites, and kosher means to be clean, but also it means to be fit and proper. And it's not fit and proper for some modern women to assume that just because they're a woman, they deserve the best or the top percentages of men. April Mason is proving my sentiment, and she's proving the sentiment of many men in America as it relates to the modern woman and her more or less exploitative nature concerning what she wants. There are many men in this space that feels that a woman should get, you know, all her bills paid for just because, and I disagree with that. Unless she earns the right to be in that man's life, unless she earns or more or less bringing something to that man's life, then I say she doesn't deserve it. I want you guys to explore what April Mason is talking about, because April Mason is adding some credence to the conversation. This is what April Mason said in the past. April Mason said, "Why am I closing my dating academy and getting out of the business of helping women in this way? The same reason why I closed my matchmaking service back in 2013. And this points or more or less give clarity to what I've always said with many modern women. Many modern women, unfortunately some of our black women, have thinking errors called magnification. They magnify their own worth at the behest of the black man. And there was a time when men and women both came to the table with high expectations, and they got a fair exchange, because in fair exchange there is no robbery. Most women 30, 40, 50 years ago were wife-ready. Many were virgins or didn't have a high body count, or many didn't even have children. But we live in a world now that some women actually mock and laugh at men that make $50,000, and they feel like they deserve the best. And I say no man or woman deserve anything. You are what you've earned, as B.J.S. Itmore says that water seeks his own level. Shout out to him. But back to the discussion with April Mason. April Mason is proving my point, and she's proving why many men in America are walking away, because they're tired of the incessant behaviors of many modern women. I know there are some men in this spaces that are advocates for marriage, and while I'm not against marriage, I believe in it. I don't feel that most men are getting what they want as it relates to the modern woman. And so you can work hard, you can give a woman everything, and that's still not a guarantee that she won't turn a deaf ear or turn the other page to go to a man that can give her more, because that's exploitative. That's carnal hypergamy. Carnal comes from the word carne, which in Greek means meat. And just like a predator, you know, an animal or a lion, you know, many modern women are very predatorial as it relates to the exploitation of men. And there's a condition that I've labeled called taxation without representation and the mental breaking of the American male. And that mental breaking has caused many men to have a chasm as it relates to them being involved in relationships. To more or less segue what April is saying, April says after 10 years of helping women in this area, it's time to move on. I've had dozens of success stories from women who are now married, engaged, or dating high caliber men. My track record speaks for itself. However, and this goes back, here's the caveat to what I've been saying, the majority that comes to me have unrealistic expectations, the selfishness, fake everything that they should be chosen just because they have vaginas, good look, and entitlement, and just mean not knowing the difference between a woman and a wise woman will fight you to be strong. And that's what I said before in the past. This woman is reverberating my main sentiments. Many modern women have thinking errors, and sadly, many of them are black women. And while I love black women, the ones that are sound, reasonable, and have a love and honor and respect for black men, you got women that are defecating on men that make $50,000 a year. They mock at those men. They laugh at those men. And they say those men are not enough. But suppose men would say that you are not enough. Suppose men say that, you having kids about other men is not enough. Suppose the men would say you having hot bodies is not enough. Suppose the men say that you, because of your unrealistic expectations, are overweight. And I say this because April Mason is a sister that has more or less reverberated my sentiment from the past. Many men are suffering in silence to the point that many have snapped and they've become the rubber band man. I did a show with my dear friend TJ today, and we talked about the breaking or the snapping of many modern men. And see, when we tend to aggrandize women at the expense of our men, then you have what's called today the suffering of many men in silence. And I said today that 29% of men are actually virgins. So what did that say? It more or less corroborates my frame of reference that I've said in the past, that many think they deserve the best of the best, which is the 5, 10, or more or less 15% of men. And because of that, I've told men to focus on yourself. Never give a woman your power, which is your dignity and your self-worth. I said on the show earlier today that I would rather lose in dignity than lose in being a simp or more or less a commodification of subjugation. And many men have allowed themselves to be subjects because they have low self-esteem. They believe the lie that they don't have any inherent worth. And while I believe that men should level up, and while I believe that men should work hard, and while I believe that men should give their time, money, resources, and effort to women that deserve it, every woman is not deserving of your time, your attention, nor your body. And this more or less goes back to what April Mason is saying about modern women. She is more or less reflecting what me and other men are saying. And that's why you have groups like IPMOR, SYSBM, MGTOW, or other groups of men, or just, men that are being more or less reflective on their own worth, because they don't see any inherent worth of the modern American woman. April goes on to say, looks, entitlement, just meaning knowing the difference between being a woman and a wise woman will fight you to be strong, and not knowing to be versus do, thinking being a feminine woman is weak or pick me, right, April? And placing the blame and not taking responsibility or accountability for the choices that they make. And April, you are correct. A lot of women have a condition that I've created called deaf. And as a clinical therapist, that's tied to something called cognitive distortions. Deaf actually stands for they deny the evidence. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue or fight you to ad hominem attacks, and they fight you or flee when the evidence is presented. And that's what they've done to you, and that's what they've done to many women, and that's what they've done to many men. I want to challenge some of the young men and the younger men and also middle-aged men. Stop fighting with women that feel like they're better than you. Live your life on purpose. Live your life with convictions. Love yourself. Focus on yourself. If you don't have a passport, get a passport and travel. While we know that all men can't travel, while we know that only 5% of men have passports, if you don't have a passport, travel with an understanding that women universally are all the same regardless of wherever you go. If you're a sucker in America, you'll be a sucker abroad. But here's the caveat. In general, women abroad have been conditioned to treat you with honor and respect. In general, most women abroad are not, in my opinion, carnal hypergamous. They're more or less kosher hypergamous. It's fair exchange, meaning they want a man to provide for them, protect them, and give them their basics. They count it an honor to serve you. They count it an honor to be in your grace or in your presence. Shout out to my man El Guapo and his beautiful wife-to-be, LaBea. She's been conditioned to serve her soon-to-be husband. So, I want you men to stop feeling bad about trying to bust your ass for women that don't give a damn about you. Live your life on your own convictions. Live your life unapologetically masculine. Focus on yourself. Be the best version of yourself. And realize that later is always better. And I want you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. Loving yourself and understanding female psychology is just one of those things. But when you understand the exploitative nature of many females in modern America, you won't become a victim of your own peril. Be well.